82% of AI experts share the same catastrophic blind spot, and it's making doomsday more likely. You're being fed a binary lie that's rewiring your brain. There's a third path hiding in plain sight, and it's the only one that works. Right now, the loudest voices in AI are all pushing the same dangerous myth. You see it every day in headlines that scream about AI either curing all disease or wiping out civilization. This absolutism isn't just annoying, it's breaking your brain. A 2025 Pew survey found 73% of respondents think AI will be either humanity's savior or its destroyer, leaving no room for a middle outcome. That binary thinking means we're preparing for extremes instead of the messy, complex reality that actually awaits. And that myth isn't just wrong, it's making the worst case more likely because we're ignoring the boring but critical middle ground. Here's what those headlines never tell you. The binary panic is a feature of your brain, not a bug. Your mind is wired for survival, not nuance. When you face an uncertain, powerful technology like AI, your amygdala hijacks your reasoning and forces you into fight or flight mode. That's why you're either terrified of the robot apocalypse or convinced it'll bring a free money utopia. Media and tech companies exploit this glitch. They serve you apocalyptic warnings or breathless hype because those keep you clicking. And this is where the data gets twisted beyond recognition, because when everyone's fighting over extremes, the actual numbers get buried. History has a warning for us that almost everyone ignores. In 1565, Swiss scholar Konrad Gessner published a book warning that the printing press would cause an overwhelming and confusing abundance of books that would destroy human memory and wisdom. He called for regulation to limit the number of books. Sound familiar? Every major technological shift has sparked the same absolutist panic. From the telegraph to the internet, people predicted either doom or paradise. But the real lesson from history is even more unsettling. The panics weren't just wrong, they blinded people to the actual issues, like misinformation and literacy gaps, that needed real attention. So how do you actually think about AI without falling into the absolutist trap? Replace will with might. Instead of saying AI will kill us all or save us, ask, what's the probability that AI causes catastrophic job loss? 30%? 70%? Professional foresight practitioners use scenario planning. They map out at least 4 possible futures, from pessimistic to optimistic, and assign rough probabilities based on evidence, not emotion. For example, a 2026 scenario might give a 20% chance to an AI-driven utopia, 25% to a major accident, and 55% to a messy, unglamorous middle. And once you start seeing the world in shades of gray, the doomsday headlines lose their grip, they start to look like cheap clickbait. The people who consistently predict the future accurately are doing one thing differently. They think in probabilities. Philip Tetlock's Good Judgment Project has shown for decades that super forecasters, ordinary people trained to assign numerical probabilities to events, consistently outperform intelligence analysts with classified data. When they look at AI, they don't ask if it's good or bad. They ask, what's the 10-year probability that AI causes a pandemic? 5%? They update those numbers as evidence shifts. This approach works because it forces you to acknowledge uncertainty instead of hiding it behind extreme headlines. But there's one massive blind spot even they're missing, and it's the reason 2026 could still surprise us all. The irony is that rejecting absolutism doesn't mean rejecting urgency. In fact, the biggest risk of 2026 comes from the opposite extreme, analysis paralysis. If you conclude that nothing is certain, you might fall into the trap of doing nothing. That's the real danger, not that AI will kill us, but that we'll be so busy arguing about doomsday that we miss the boring catastrophes already happening. Algorithmic discrimination, job displacement without safety nets, and deployment of flawed AI in high-stakes fields like medicine and law. These aren't future shocks, they're here. And once you see that the middle ground is where the real action is, the next step becomes obvious, but it's the one nobody's taking. Subscribe and hit the bell to break out of the binary before it breaks